Hello, everybody. I've got a DCU update for you guys today. And today is going to be one of my definitive videos where I am going to probably link back to this video for years to come. So you guys are going to want to stick around for this because we need to talk about the state of the DCU and where I stand as a fan because I get a lot of comments, people telling me that I'm nothing other than a Snyder shill. I've been called all kinds of different names because of my stance on DC. And this isn't just to, and I want to make it clear that this is not just to, appease the people that don't like my channel or are bashing on me. So I'm not doing this as just a result of the negative comments. This is something that I think everybody needs to understand about my channel and about where I stand as far as DC goes, as far as Snyder goes, as far as the Snyderverse goes, because there are a crap ton of misconceptions out there. Yesterday I did a post on Twitter that has almost doubled my Twitter followers and has caused a lot of discussion. Yesterday I was cleaning up my theater room, and I put up a picture of, I'll actually show you guys this. I'll bring you over to it so you can see it. So here is the post that I put up. It's just a picture in my theater room when I was cleaning. I have the original tin from Man of Steel when the movie got released on video. I've got my original ticket that I had to go to early ahead of time to a Walmart to make sure that I got in for the premiere because I am a massive Superman and Batman fan. In fact, Christopher Reeve's Superman 2 is one of my favorite memories at the theater with my dad when I was younger. And I was very eager to see this new iteration of Superman. And then I got the 4K Ultra box set around Christmas time. They had it on sale for Black Friday sale, and I got it super cheap. And I'm glad I picked it up. There are some cool things inside that set. But I just posted a picture of this, and I said the greatest superhero films of all time, ahead of their time. Movies that get better with every viewing. We will never see epic like this ever again thanks to Warner Brothers Discovery and James Gunn. Thanks for destroying the Superman of our generation. And that is the key word, or the key phrase here. Thanks for destroying the Superman of our generation. I want to be very clear on what is going on with the DCU. It was reported today by the Hollywood Reporter that this film is scheduled to make a dismal showing. So let's see here. So for instance, so the Hollywood Reporter is saying that Shazam! Fury of Gods is tracking for a very low-key $35 million to $40 million domestic opening when it gets released. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to be very frank about this because there are people out there still saying, and I'm telling you right now, I told everybody this was going to happen. I follow movies. I understand trends. I understand all of that. I've been following movies my entire life. It's a part of who I am. It's ingrained in me. It's what I do. This movie is going to tank. And I told everybody it was going to tank. And it's a direct result of what James Gunn and Warner Brothers Discovery have done. The movie would have done better, but they have doomed this film. And it's because of their decision to get rid of Henry Cavill as Superman. What people fail to realize is that the fans are the ones that go to see films 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. I saw Man of Steel, I think, 3 or 4 times at the theater. The average moviegoer, the target audience they say they're trying to reach goes once. They're a one and done. But if you don't have the fan support, the movies are not going to make it. It's a fact. Now, here's where I stand as far as Zack Snyder goes. I am not just a Snyder shill or just a Snyder fan myself. Yes, I do think those 3 films are probably the most incredible films that have been made as far as superhero genre films. But they're not the only films in the DCEU that I like. And I'm going to explain this so people can understand. I was never a huge Snyder fan before those films came out. I had seen Sucker Punch. I had seen Watchmen. But I think that was it as far as James Gunn's film, or not James Gunn's, but Zack Snyder's films have gone. Those are the only films I'd ever seen. And so I was aware of him, but I was not like, and I'd seen 300 as well. I'd seen these films, but I didn't consider any of those films like must-see, amazing, off-the-charts, incredible movies. And I was very lackluster when I found out he was going to be directing Superman. I wanted to know how it was going to come out. Now, when I first saw Superman, I was uber excited, and I left the film a little underwhelmed, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought the end was overbloated. Now, as time has gone on, I've seen how brilliant this film really is. I love the emotion that's in it. The music, the way it's executed is amazing. I still think the end is a little overbloated, but this movie was ahead of its time. If you just watch the opening is incredible. The whole Kryptonian scenes are just, amazing. So it was a good film. And then shortly after that, they announced that Batman versus Superman was going to be coming out. When it got released, it got bashed by critics. It got trashed. And I went and saw it, and I enjoyed it. I went and saw Batman vs. Superman. I think I saw it 5 times. And I went with various different people so I could explain some stuff to them because the movie felt incomplete at the theater. And it did. Because we found out that the studio had butchered and taken out almost 30 minutes of footage. The day after it got released, no joke, the day after Batman vs. Superman got released, there was a scene released by Warner Brothers with Lex Luthor in the Kryptonian ship communicating with Steppenwolf. Right there, I knew that this movie something had happened to it. And then it was shortly after where you could order the extended edition, the Ultimate Edition, and it had, almost 30 minutes of extra footage put back in, and it was rated R. Now, for people who don't understand, extended films aren't usually rated R. This was rated R. And I was like, okay, that means that this was slated for release, but the studio forced him to cut scenes out so they could get more people in the seats. They were concerned about getting enough tickets because of the length of the film. They butchered that film. Then you had Suicide Squad came out, which I actually enjoyed. I still prefer it as it is. I actually like it better than the Suicide Squad that James Gunn did. We find out later that movie had been butchered and we never actually saw. Well, I did follow the actual filming, and there were supposed to be a bunch of Joker scenes. They talked about how he had filmed over an hour's worth of Joker scenes. And, Jared Leto, however you say his name, and that there was going to be a lot of Joker in the film. And then the movie came out and he's in it for less than 5 minutes. And I'm like, what the heck did we see here? What was all that talk when the filming was getting done? And then Justice League came out. And I went and saw the film, and I left the theater scratching my head. It was a completely different feel. They had reduced the Flash to a nobody. They didn't really give him anything to do in the movie, especially at the ending. And it seemed a little goofy to me. I felt a little, and almost half of what you saw in the trailer wasn't even in the movie. And I had heard that, Zack Snyder was having issues with his family. His daughter had committed suicide and things were going on behind the scenes. And I left the theater just like, all right, that's a good movie. And I think at the time I gave it 4 stars. Like, I enjoyed it as a superhero film, but it felt very much like a Marvel movie. It did. And then the Blu-ray came out for it, and I got the Steelbook from Best Buy, and there were 2 deleted scenes in there, both involving Superman. And that's when I knew, when I saw those 2 scenes, that something terrible had happened to that movie, that it had been butchered by the studio. And I followed Zack Snyder after that, and then the whole, restore the Snyderverse, but the whole release the Snyder Cut movement started. And I kind of followed that. And at this point, I still wasn't like a massive Zack Snyder fan, but I felt like we had been ripped off, that we had been completely ripped off. And I even called Warner Brothers at one point when Walter Hamada had gotten in there, and I talked to an executive down there, and we had a very frank discussion, and they told me you're going to see a 180 on everything coming up soon, that they've heard the fans, and then they were going to be correcting a lot of stuff. And they did, to a large degree, some of that. That movie, well, before I get to talking about what happened with Zack Snyder's Justice League, I do need to go back to Wonder Woman. Because and this is where, I'm going to show you guys that I'm not just a Snyder shill, but I'm going to talk about what I felt with both Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and then I'm going to finish the discussion talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League. So when Wonder Woman came out, I got to see it really early, like really, really early. And I was very worried about it because of the way Batman vs. Superman felt disjointed when it got released, and Suicide Squad finding out that, they had cut a bunch of stuff out. I was very apprehensive about seeing Wonder Woman, and I was just worried it just wasn't going to be good. Got to see it with my wife, and my gosh. To understand how I feel about superhero films, when I was a kid, I was infatuated with Christopher Reeve as Superman. Freaking amazing. Freaking amazing. Loved Superman. Obsessed with it. Watched it so many times. He was Superman. There has never been a superhero film since where I felt like that person is that character. Until Wonder Woman came out. The No Man's Land scene. Oh my gosh. I got chills and I felt like I was a kid again. She was Wonder Woman. Love the movie. Thought the third act had a few issues with it, but overall I really enjoyed Wonder Woman a lot, and it made quite a bit of money, and I really enjoyed it. And then Aquaman came out, and I loved Aquaman. I thought it was a great movie. It was the scope of that film, the fight at the end underwater. Man, the scope of that movie was off the charts, crazy awesome. I loved the music. I thought portraying Aquaman seriously like that, it was really well done. I really enjoyed that movie quite a bit. So I don't just love Snyder films. I actually like the DCU when they get out of the way and they let the filmmakers make their movies. But the filmmakers started butchering all of Zack Snyder's stuff, and that leads us to Zack Snyder's Justice League. I was very eager to see Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I was worried that it might not be good. Because the two films he'd done, I really enjoyed them, but I was, to me, Man of Steel, the ending could have been better. Batman vs. Superman, to me, was just amazing. 5 stars. Like, the extended edition is off the charts, crazy awesome. So I was like, is this going to be worse than Man of Steel? Is it going to be better? Is it going to be as good as Batman vs. Superman? And then this 4-hour movie finally did get released, almost 2 years ago in March. And when it got released, I watched it twice that day. I had my dad over, my family. We all watched it. And oh my gosh, that movie righted such a terrible wrong. The studio had really screwed up his vision royally. And I looked back at everything as a one-sum total and realized Zack Snyder had a vision. The studio kept ruining it. They ruined David Ayer's movie. Now we find out just how bad they ruined David Ayer's movie. They butchered the next 2 Zack Snyder films, Batman vs. Superman, and then they did it to Justice League. The studio had no idea what they were doing. They thought they were trying to make it more accessible to the general audience, but all they were doing was ruining the vision that Zack Snyder had and what he was trying to promote. That's when I really got converted over to loving those films. And now I see Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League as just one of the greatest trilogy of films. It's an incomplete story. There should be more. But my gosh, he started something amazing that never got finished because the studio got involved. I'm going to do a separate video here because this is where I want to finish off on this video, but I'm going to do another video on what I think needs to happen with Warner Brothers Discovery and James Gunn in the next video. So look for that probably later today or early tomorrow. I'm going to talk about what I think needs to be done. I posted about this on Twitter yesterday, but I want to have that discussion in a separate video on where I think things need to go from here to get this ship corrected. So I'll talk about that on the next video. I do appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.